Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me today here on Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday, we're rocking and rolling here on the show. A free show. It goes about an hour each day. Some days a little bit less, some days a little bit more. We talk baseball, we talk football, we talk basketball, we talk memorabilia at times. We talk off the cuff and discuss things that don't make any sense. I went to the DMV yesterday. Maybe that'll come up. We have a lot of fun here on the show. Tell a friend. Let them know that we have this free offering for FantasyGuru.com. You can always go to FG and click that subscribe tab in the top right corner and get signed up for all of our products. All the products are available right now at FantasyGuru.com. But we like to show you a little bit of fun in the morning, give you something to watch before the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. After our one-day hiatus yesterday, we will be returning today. Myself and Ted Schuster, by the way, on 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Elite Sports Show. Baseball might make an appearance on the show later today, but if you want football talk, tune into Elite Sports 3 to 6 on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio today. We're going to have Armando Marsal on to talk some DraftKings DFS. We're going to have Tyler Beaker on to talk his Game Scripts article. We're going to have me and Ted on the whole show. Ted will talk about the Core 4 and FanDuel. We'll also have Ted's Core 4 bets of the week. We'll break down all the matchups for the 4 games this weekend. It's going to be basically 3 hours of football talk, including our top 5 predictions for the weekend. So check that out. Ted and I today on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Jeff, who's been dealing with the family situation this week, fully expect Jeff to return on Monday to the Elite Sports Show. What are we talking about here today? Well, here you go. This is what we got. We got a lot of baseball news to talk about and some football stuff. Kind of the plan we've been following here for the last, 5 months? No, actually, I can't say that. What am I saying? Last month and a half? Something like that. Obviously, for 5+ months, we've been doing football. We haven't been doing baseball as long. But again, you go to FantasyGuru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up for the baseball product. We'll talk some of the news and notes the last 24 hours. Jessie Winker, Pete Alonso, Vlad Guerrero, Kyle Tucker, Marcus Stroman, Jose Miranda, Patrick Sandoval got some good news to the hurler. Jorge Polanco, Randal, Grichuk, and Keston Hiura. Is it finally time to Keston? We'll talk about it here. He's going to the Rockies. We'll talk about it here. In about 25 or so minutes, we'll visit with Russell Clay. The NFL is considering moving to 18 games. We'll talk a little bit about this week's matchups with Russell. Which wide receiver does he prefer of the Eagles this week? Which running back of the Chiefs does he prefer this week? Long-term, which quarterback does he prefer between Bo Nix and Trevor Lawrence? Brian Thomas or Malik Nabers? The dynasty rankings have been updated over at FantasyGuru.com, so we'll ask Russell a little bit about his thoughts on which one of these superstars he would want on his team, excuse me. And then finally, just a little, here we go. See it on the screen for those of you watching live on Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, live on YouTube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, or live on Twitter X @FantasyGuru site. You can watch the show live. You can leave comments and questions that we'll address throughout the show. You can obviously see it here, whether you're watching it live or on demand. Thank you. You can always download the podcast too at Fantasy. Just type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network, or go to the FG website itself. Click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. As you can see there on the page, you got a lot of things to offer you over at FantasyGuru.com when it comes to baseball in 2025. We've got all of these it's been rankings week, right? So we've got the AL, NL mixed league rankings, AL, NL only mixed league auction values. Today, the on-base percentage rankings went up. The category rankings for pitchers went up yesterday. The day before that, it was category rankings for hitters. The day before that, it was Points League. The day before that, it was Dynasty League. All rankings all week here as we start to eventually, we'll get there, folks, dive into the reasons why these players are ranked that way. We'll start doing that here moving forward, get a little more specifics, granular style. But to this point, we've just rankings the hell out of everything. And I think it's gone pretty well. And so we will do our best to endeavor to make that a reality for you. And that reality would be winning in 2025. 25. I forgot 20 years. Jeez. You know why I said 2005? I was actually going through old school stuff this morning, and I'll just throw it on the screen real quick before we start talking what we're going to talk about. do kids or do adults, does anyone send cards to players to autograph anymore? Like now you get all the inserts and the packs, and you're chasing the card that's been signed and the whole thing, one per box or whatever it might be. I don't know how often this is. And Beckett, I think it was Beckett, used to publish the actual addresses of the stadiums as a kid. Because again, this is before the internet and you could look this information up. And so every year, I don't know, not every year, every couple of years, I'd get 5 to 10 cards and send them out. You put them in a self-addressed stamped envelope. You send them to the stadium, care of so-and-so, and you hope you get the card back. Well, I found one of them this morning. Interestingly enough, this is a pretty cool card. It's a Topps Finest from, what is this, 1998. And in 1997, this pitcher only won 9 games, but he had 150 strikeouts, 181 innings, was one of the more stable but not sexy right-handed pitchers in baseball. That was another part of it too, right? You couldn't send your card necessarily to the best guy. If you sent it to the best guy, would you ever get it back? So I sent a card to, it's hard to see up to my green screen. I sent a card to Shane Reynolds. Look at that. Shane Reynolds autographed it and sent it back to me. Now, there's always a chance the Bat Boy did it. You never know, right? But it was pretty cool. So I sent out a bunch of cards. Here's one of them I just found. It was the Shane Reynolds. So I'm trying to find it here. I'll show it later to to Russell Clay when he joins us to see what he thinks. But that's why I said 2005 instead of 2025, because I was thinking old school. By the way, I sent a 8x10. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Donruss had 8x10 cards. I'll have to find that. 8x10 cards. Like it was a big thing, a pack. Maybe it was 7x9. I don't know. It was big. Let's call it 8x10. I sent it to Jeff Bagwell, who was like one of my favorite players, a handful of guys that was my favorite player. I sent it to Jeff Bagwell, and I thought, hope and a prayer. It could cost me like $3 to ship it. Like I'm like, because you had to ship it, and then you had to return. You have to have the self-addressed stamped envelope in it to return it back. So you had to pay for shipping both ways to increase your chance of getting the card back. And I never got it back, and I forgot about it. Like a year and a half later, here comes this 8x10 Jeff Bagwell signed. It was like, this is a great. So I don't know. He must have had a pile of them in the corner, and he just went through them whenever he had free time. It was like a year and a half later. I totally forgot. At that point, I had forgotten. I got over my despair that I didn't get it. Got it. So anyway, I wonder if anyone does that anymore. Angelo says, I got a lot of autographs through the mail in the 70s. I used self-addressed postcards, self-stamp. Yeah, I mean, that's so. Angelo, you and I, old souls. I wonder if the youngins even do this. I'll ask Russell Clay when he comes on in a few minutes if he's ever done that. I'm going to say he probably hasn't, even though he's a card guy. We'll see. All right, let's throw it back up on the screen here. So let's talk Jesse Winker for a second before you say, well, Ray, why? It's because of what is likely to occur because of Jesse Winker. So the Mets are trying to figure out what to do with Pete Alonso. And it sounds like we were hearing for days, weeks, if not months, that Pete Alonso was most likely to return to the Mets. We've in fact heard, I even said on the show this week, reports are suggesting that he's going to sign a 3-year deal with opt-outs. Apparently that all changed last 36 hours because what we're hearing now is that Jesse Winker signs a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Mets. He's returned to the Mets. He basically went 15-15 last year. I don't know where the deals came from. Winker, one of my favorite lower level fantasy options. I love his overall approach. For multiple years, he vanished, injuries, poor performance. It looked like his career was in the toilet. And last year, Jesse Winker showed back up. And not only did Jesse Winker with the bat show back up, he somehow stole bases. So he was a really productive fantasy performer last year. He figures to be pretty productive again. He's kind of like Jock Peterson, right? He's a platoon guy. He's not going to face lefties. I wouldn't expect him to steal 15 bases again. But did he actually get 15? It might have been 14. Let me look this up now that I say it. But the bottom line is Jesse Winker was signed. He'll probably DH most days against right-handed pitching. He did have 14. He went 14-14. I misspoke. So he is signed, and then things start to get a little tight. And you wonder to yourself, why? Well, the reports then are trickling down that it seems now likely that Yonder Alonso. I'm going back to school. I was in the 90s as well. Pete Alonso. I might have had a Yonder. I think I got a Yonder Alonso autograph card in a pack once. Maybe it was just a refractor. I don't know. I'm all mixing things up here today. It's been a long week. Got a lot of things going on. Anyway, Pete Alonso, it seems like he's not likely now to return to the Mets. So it looks like the Mets will, they signed obviously Juan Soto, that huge addition. There's a lot of talk now that Mark Vientos will move to first base from third. He'll move to first and become the full-time first baseman. Third baseman will be Brett Beatty. Maybe Mauricio, when he's healthy, will get in the mix there. we'll see what the Mets do, but it's starting now to look like Jesse Winker will basically be there against right-handed pitching, full-time DH, and Vientos will move to first base, and Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Beatty, and Ronnie Mauricio will battle for the third base gig. Remember, Brett Beatty was a first-round pick back in 2019 and was one of the top 20 prospects in all of baseball. And he's really stalled out, but he's still only 25 years old. And we see this happen a lot, right? Where these former top-level prospects take a little bit of time to develop. The Mets, if they don't bring back Alonso, as appears likely at this point, would really love for Brett Beatty to become that 275, 20 home run guy they thought he would be a few years ago. Okay, so that's what's going on with the Mets. Now, we got news this morning that Roki Sasaki, well, we didn't get news. The young phenom from Japan who throws 99 miles an hour, we reported yesterday or 2 days ago, it was down to the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, and the Padres for his services. That was kind of the prevailing wisdom. Well, the Padres spent some of their international signing money to sign a couple of guys, a couple kids, knocking off a couple $1 million of their pool that they could spend. So the assumption now is it's Dodgers or Blue Jays. Let's hope it's the Blue Jays. Like, come on. It's bad enough the Dodgers, and again, I'm a Giants fan, full disclosure, but it's bad enough that the Dodgers have gazillions of dollars they can just pay everyone. Getting a player like Sasaki and not having to pay him because he doesn't have enough service time across the ocean, so he's getting $6 million. Or like, ugh, come on, man. Like, this is starting to get super teamish. This is starting to feel like an NBA team for the basketball for the Olympics. Like, it's starting to get really bad at the Dodgers. So let's hope he goes to the Blue Jays. Speaking of the Blue Jays have, as we discussed last week, Vladimir Guerrero signed that about $29 million deal to avoid arbitration in his final year of eligibility. Next year, he becomes a free agent. They haven't worked anything out. And, Vlad is going to take $300 million plus. It might be $400, it might be $500. It's going to take $300 million plus. Can the Blue Jays pay that? I think they can. Have they ever played anything close to that? No. Are they willing to pay that? Well, they're saying that they don't have any intention of trading Vladimir Guerrero. So if they don't have any intention of trading him in his final year of eligibility before he becomes a free agent, you have to think they feel pretty confident in his ability to be re-signed. It makes no sense at all to take was he 25, 26? How old is Vlad? Is he 26? It makes no sense to have a superstar offensive player who turns 26 in March. Jeez, he's not even 25 years old. In the prime of his career, where his prime is not, he's not a 30-year-old. This happens a lot, right? The Albert Pujols stuff. These guys are 31 when they sign that big contract, and then it's like, oh crap, Vlad will be 26 when he signs his next contract, right? Which is huge. That means you get like 5 extra years of peak elite performance. He's going to get, like Juan Soto, he's probably going to get $400 or $500 million. If the Blue Jays don't intend to pay that, if they don't have conversations with Vlad and his representatives and think that there's a realistic chance that Vlad would want to stay in Toronto, to trade him. And the earlier that they would trade him, the better it would be, because obviously if he's got 1 year left of control to a new team, they'd want to take advantage of the entire year versus 4 months, 3 months. You know how it goes, right? Now, the return wouldn't be great unless the team that was getting him had great confidence that Vlad would be able to be signed by them long term. So it's not like they're going to get 6 first-round draft picks for him, right? But it's interesting. They say they won't trade him. So that leads me to think that, not only is Vlad playing for that contract, but they're hoping, at least Toronto is, he's playing for that contract with the Blue Jays. Really interesting. We'll see how that one plays out. They could always change that, obviously, last minute. You never know how that's going to go. But that's where we're at right now. Kyle Tucker, who we talked about yesterday, because we were going through, if you missed it, you could see episode 316. We talked about the top 50 performers in fantasy in 2024 as we were kind of finishing our review. Talked about Kyle Tucker and how he was great last year, but he only played half the season, so his numbers overall weren't where they were to the levels that were expected. And we talked last week, about the fact that he submitted like a $17 million figure, and his new team, the Cubs, submitted a $15 million figure. And we talked about the potential acrimony that often occurs when the teams actually make it to arbitration, because each side's fighting for their life. And it's weird to me. We talked about some of the numbers, like what was the Rengifo, like $150,000 apart between what he asked and what the team offered for? Like, what's the organization doing? I get you don't want to just burn money, but you're going to alienate a player, alienate his teammates over $150,000, which you literally wipe your ass with. Like, so there was a roughly $2.5 million, $2 million difference, something like that with Tucker. Cooler heads prevailed. Kyle Tucker said, you know what, $16.5 million sounds pretty good. The Cubs said, yeah, you're pretty good. That's pretty fair. They agreed to it. So there will be no arbitration hearing for Kyle Tucker, which obviously is really good news for Kyle Tucker and for the Cubs. Now that the question becomes, can the Cubs sign him long-term? Obviously, that will be their hope. Whether it happens early in the year, mid-season, late in the year, we'll see, but that will be their hope. Now, what does this mean that the lineup for the Cubs looks like? Well, I think it's fair to say that Ian Happ probably hits leadoff. Maybe Seiya Suzuki second, Tucker third. Maybe Tucker second, Seiya Suzuki third, something like that. Dansby Swanson, Michael Busch probably factor in there. You can see that the Cubs, while not having a dynamic lineup, they've got a varied group here. Ian Happ is a switch hitter. Tucker's left-handed. Michael Busch is left-handed. Pete Crow-Armstrong is left-handed. So if they want, they can do a lot of lefty-righty stuff. So that's intriguing in terms of what they could do to force opponents into not being able to, bullpen them out late in the game. You look at their bench right now, and Carson Kelly, Gage Workman, Vidal Brujan, and Alexander Canaro. That's thin. Starting lineup looks okay. They'll obviously really benefit the Cubs if Matt Shaw, their next guy, because remember it was supposed to be who was their first baseman was supposed to be? He's on Matt something. What was his name? Dang it! Why am I drawing a blank here? Help me out, somebody in Discord. He was supposed to be their next guy. First base. Oh, he's on my Dynasty League team. How about that? I'll pull up my Dynasty League team real quick. Matt, but where is this guy? Come on, Ray. Find it quick. It's Matt Mervis. Matt Mervis. Jeez, Ray. Matt Mervis is supposed to be the next guy. Let's hope that Matt Shaw, the new Matt, becomes the guy. Yeah, and by the way, Angela, you said that the Padres. Yeah, the Padres are one of those teams. I'm pretty sure. Let me verify that, but I'm pretty sure they were technically, they kind of let it slip the other day. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The Padres are the ones that signed Carlos Alvarez and Johan De La Cruz, spending international money. They spent, two signings, $2.5 million of the $6.5 million pool they have. So that means Sasaki would only get $3.5 million. So it's not official that the Padres are out, but that would be about half of what some of the other teams can pay him. So probably he is out with the Padres. Okay, going back to things here as I scribble, and I know I've been a little scattered this week. I've been stepping in for Jeff Manns, and for those people that don't know, talking 4 hours a day is a lot. Then I have to plan this show, I have to plan that show. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that you have to take care of, posting this and creating this. It's like 6-7 hours a day before I've written a word, and then I've got to write. So I'm talking football all day. Then I got to write baseball. I'm doing rankings behind the scenes. I have pottery tonight, so I'm looking forward to my pottery tonight. That'll be a way for me to relax a little bit. Back to baseball, Marcus Stroman. There's a thought that the Mets and Stroman are looking for a breakup. And Stroman, while he disappointed last season, is at least an innings eater. The problem for Stroman is that he's no longer somebody that's looked at as the top of the rotation guy, which is fine. Every team in baseball would probably take Marcus Stroman to be part of their rotation, or at least 80% of them. The problem is that if he throws 140 innings this year, he triggers a clause in his contract that says he gets paid $18 million next year. Remember, a guy like Justin Verlander just signed a $15 million one-year deal. Marcus Stroman would get a one-year, $18 million deal in essence. So that's making it difficult for the Yankees to trade him. They're going to have to put some provisions in that if that happens, they'll eat some of the contract, because teams aren't going to want to pay him what he's due $18 million next year and the money he's due this year. Like, it's just not, it's too much to be doing a 1-for-1 trade, or they trade Marcus Stroman for some 30th level guy, right? They don't get a good return. So if you see a trade come down and your first reaction is, what the hell? That's probably why it's the money factor with Marcus Stroman. When we talk the Twins lost Carlos Santana. He went to the Guardians, or back to the Guardians, I guess. So the Twins, you look at their lineup, and it's, what are we going to do with the lineup? Well, there's certain mainstays in this lineup. Willie Castro's going to play every day. Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton when he's healthy, Larnach and Wallner, the big boppers, Royce Lewis. They like to have Brooks Lee play second base on a daily basis. They obviously have got Ryan Jeffers and Christian Javier at catcher. So that means really, who's their first baseman? Could they do a Larnach at first or a Wallner at first? They could. Is that what they want to do? Nah. It looks like Jose Miranda is probably going to be the guy. If Royce Lewis can stay at third base, and there has been some talk about moving, we talked about this yesterday, there's been some talk moving Lewis off third base. If he stays at third base, that means first base probably becomes Jose Miranda. Jose Miranda is 26. He had that magical, massive season down at the minor leagues that made everyone really excited. He was very good as a rookie. Got hurt in his second season. Last year, rebounded. Basically, Jose Miranda appears to be a younger version of a Nathaniel Lowe with a worse on-base percentage, right? He's a 280, 15, 75 guy. Totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have a long career being that kind of hitter in Major League Baseball. Though, again, as I noted, 315 career on-base percentage, totally league average. The power he did display in the minor leagues, no one thinks he's hitting 30 home runs at the big league level. So Miranda, is a very boring corner infield option in mixed leagues. In AL-only leagues, he's intriguing because if he can stay healthy, there's a path to 500 plate appearances there. But he's just not a sexy guy. Just wanted to point that out because it does look like he's likely to take over at first base now unless they bring in Pete Alonso, which they're not going to do. Patrick Sandoval, who joined the Red Sox, we thought he had Tommy John surgery. Well, he was talking to the press the other day, and by the way, he said, I didn't have Tommy John surgery. I had the internal brace procedure. This is exciting because while it was expected that, September-ish might have been the return date for Patrick Sandoval, we might now be looking at midseason, maybe even in the first half. Why doesn't everyone get the internal brace surgery, Ray, on their elbow when the UCL is damaged? Because not everyone's, it depends how the tear occurred, where the tear is, all that. Not everyone is a candidate for the internal brace. But the internal brace procedure versus the Tommy John procedure that everyone knows about. Tommy John is generally 12 to 14 months recovery, generally. Some guys, it takes years. Some guys never make it back. The data says about 90% of people that have Tommy John surgery, 90% come back. That means 10% don't. That takes about 12 to 14 months generally. The internal brace is 7 to 10, 7 to 9. So that's, Patrick Sandoval is someone to get excited about in mixed leagues? No. Is he someone to draft on, opening day? No. AL-only league, if you got aisle spots? Maybe. But this is good news for the Red Sox. They'll have him back earlier than we were anticipating. A couple of notes here. Jorge Polanco was offered a $4 million contract by the Astros. He didn't take it. $4 million for Jorge Polanco? He's been beat up and disappointing here of late, but I'm really surprised by that. And I'm not surprised he turned it down. I'm good for the Astros saying, hey, well, here, we can get this guy in the mix, and he's healthy. He hits 270 with 25 home runs. That's great. But that seems really light. And it's interesting how you can fall from the peak of the mountain to being an also-ran pretty quickly in sports, right? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing there. Now, of course, remember that Isaac Paredes was signed. He's likely to play third base. They signed Christian Walker to the Astros. He's likely to play first base. They still got Jose Altuve to play second base. Where would Polanco play? They've got Pena at shortstop. Polanco would be signing to be a reserve. Maybe that's where we're at in this point because, again, he's an aging player that's had health issues the last couple of years. But as of now, he's still available. We'll see if he goes to the Astros or somebody else and if they plan to have him as a starter or not. The Giants recently have been in discussions with Randal Grichuk. Now, Randal Grichuk's a really interesting player. Randal Grichuk and Jesse Winker, in theory, together, spectacular, right? You get an 850 OPS against right-handed pitching from Winker. You get an 850 OPS against left-handed pitching from Grichuk. You put it together, these two guys are hitting 280 with 24 home runs and an 850 OPS. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Grandal's going to the Mets. But again, the Giants have been talking to him. Even last year, Grichuk hit 290 with a 350 on base percentage and a 530 slugging percentage. It's really good. So Grichuk is going to be a league-specific option. He doesn't profile as somebody that's going to play enough to be a mixed league guy. There might be 2 or 3 week periods of time where his other outfield mates, someone gets hurt and he's playing every day. So, there might be times where we could utilize him in a mixed league. But most likely he's going to be a league-specific player. But he's still really good. And he's definitely somebody that we hit on last year, and I'm sure we'll hit on again this year, especially in the DFS game. Because when the matchup is right, Randal Grichuk is someone you should consider getting into your lineup. The Rockies now have signed Keston Hiura to a minor league contract. Now, it's been a long while since Keston Hiura was, I said Hiura, I think it's Keston Hiura. Since Keston Hiura was a somebody. But let's, if we go back, there was a period of time where Keston was top 20 in baseball as a prospect for sure. Maybe top 10 according to some. In all of baseball, in every position. He was an elite prospect as an offensive player. He was the number one prospect with the Brewers organization, no doubt about that. You look at the scouting reports, and there was 30 home runs predicted by a middle infielder. And that was really intriguing. And he could run a little bit too. So there was like, look, this guy is athletic enough. Maybe this guy goes 30-15. I think that a lot of people looked at Keston Hiura and they thought, Alex Bregman, that kind of offensive performer, not with the necessarily with the on-base percentage, but with the counting category numbers. Keston didn't do it. He struggled. And one of the main reasons he struggled is his swing is funky. And you can get to a certain level with pure talent a lot of times in any sport. And some of these guys are so phenomenally talented. When you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old and you're an all-star hitting 700, who's going to tell you to change your swing? You move on to, high school, you're hitting 650. Who's going to tell you to change your swing? You're a guy that gets drafted in the first round like Keston Hiura. Who's going to tell him to change his swing? Well, it finally caught up to him. And he had some really strong seasons in the minors. Then he struggled. As soon as he was promoted to the big leagues, he had a great first season. He played 84 games, hit 19 home runs, bat 300. Okay, everyone was right. This guy's going to hit. And then reality set in. He hit 212. He hit 168. He hit 226. He hit 148. His career batting average is 235. His career on base percentage is 313. Now, he's got a 750 OPS. He's basically been a league average guy offensively, which is not bad. Now, when you're a top 10 prospect and a top 10 pick, you get expected a lot more. He's 28 years old, okay? He's going to the Rockies. If it's ever going to happen, right? Looking at his work last year in the minor leagues, he had 287 last year with 26 home runs in 86 games. I'm not predicting anything other than, hey, let's take a reserve round pick on Keston Hiura if you're in an NL only league. We can't get nuts here. But, you look at this team. They've got Thairo Estrada, who should play second, so that's going to block Hiura. At first base, they've got Toglia, who was decent enough last year. That'll probably block him from playing first base. He's obviously not a shortstop. They've got Ezekiel Tovar there. He's not a third baseman. Even so, they've got Ryan McMahon. Who's their DH? Well, if Chris Bryant's healthy, it's Chris Bryant. So, even having value in an NL-only league, it's not going to be easy for Keston Hiura. But just keep that in the back of your mind. And again, if you want to take a 28th round pick on him in that setup, I'm okay with it. We're a few minutes away from visiting with Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. And I just want to share my experience just real quickly. I went down in California. Our driver's licenses aren't federally up to par. We got to get this Real ID thing in. So a lot of people in California, including me, have an old license that at some point will no longer be valid to travel and do things like that. I've got passports and global entry for TSA and all that, but what the hell? Let's get the driver's license set. So I went to the DMV. I haven't been to the DMV in this actual DMV probably in 20 years. I lived on the other side of the bay for a while, so I went to the DMV on the east side, over in the East Bay. But I've been to the one on the peninsula in maybe 25 years. And I remember I walk in there, and it's exactly the same. I think they have the same desks. Like, I don't think they've changed a damn thing. It's the exact same setup, everything like that. I made an appointment. You got to make an appointment. If you're going to the DMV, wherever you are, just to make an appointment. I made an appointment. They were actually maybe 10 minutes late to get to me in my appointment, which is pretty good. I think I consider that a huge win. The line of people that didn't have an appointment was the line of people to make, hey, I'm here, make an appointment, take a tag like you're at a deli, was like 25 people. Then there were probably at least that many people sitting and waiting. There had to have been 50 to 75 people waiting without an appointment. If that's you, turn around. I don't know why anyone would wait at the DMV anywhere behind 75 people. Again, I got in and out. I had all my documents. I took the driver's test at home, filled the paperwork out at home. I did everything I could at home to speed this process up, and it actually went very smoothly for me. But I got to tell you, don't go to the DMV without a reservation. And when you go to the DMV, if you're asking me, wear a mask. I think 75% of the people in there were spraying cooties everywhere. There were coughs and split. I don't know what was going on. Okay. There was a lot of sickness in that DMV. So wear a mask. That's whether you believe in masks or not, wear a mask at the DMV because that is cootie central. There were cooties everywhere. And I had to be very careful, by the way, when I walked out to make sure I didn't get run down by someone taking their driver's test. There was a girl that was kind of eyeballing me. She was in a white car and she was looking at me kind of scared. And I was like, I'm going to go really quickly here because I think you're trying to get your driver's test and you're going to run me down. But the bottom line is it worked. 3 to 4 weeks, I'll have my new ID, wear a mask at the DMV, and make a reservation. Avoid the cooties and avoid the lines. That's my thought. Okay. It's a Friday. Every Friday we visit with this guy. His middle name is Jay, I think. That's what we're going with here. He's on the show all the time. You can find him on Twitter X at Russell Clay. That Russell J. Clay, excuse me. You can probably find him in our Discord room. You can find him here all the time on Fridays. You can find him talking college football. You can find him talking NFL. You can find him talking Dynasty. And we're going to do a little bit of all of that with our man, Russell Clay. So let's bring him in right now. Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. How you doing, Russell?
Oh, man. You brought back some great memories of growing up. And the DMV before, I mean, they're still pretty archaic. But
right.
If you forgot a document, they were ruthless. They were like, end of the line. See you next week. It was a stressful time to get your license as a young lad.
It was. And I got to tell you, the lady that dealt with me was so pleasant. She was, and I nicely said, thank you, because I said, I'm looking around here and no one's smiling but you. So thank you. I really appreciate that because I bet people yell at you all day until you're an idiot. And she's like, well, you know. So we had a nice little. So it was good because the other two people I dealt with were very much like, give me your paperwork. They didn't care. But the first lady was very nice. So I told her. Tell people in customer service, by the way, that they're doing good because a lot of
totally.
Yeah. Now I said this earlier. I don't know if you saw the start of the show. Did you see the start of the show, or were you busy writing, Russell?
I was grabbing a coffee. The first few minutes.
Okay. So we've talked cards. I have a card here. I shared earlier, but I just want to show.
Ooh.
When I was a kid, we didn't have the internet, and we had Beckett. You know, the card magazine.
Beckett was king.
Right. Okay. So you remember Beckett. In the back of Beckett, they used to have the addresses of the stadiums because there was no way to find out. It couldn't go, where the Giants play, and it pops up. We didn't have that. So at the back, you'd get the address. And what I would do is every once in a while, I'd send out 5 cards. So you send the card to the stadium, you put it in the self-addressed envelope inside the card. You say, hey, I'd love to have you sign this card. So I shared a card I actually got. Okay. So it's kind of hard to see because of my green screen, but it's a Shane Reynolds.
Yeah.
Top's finest. So shiny card. You can see the autograph there across the
Top's finest.
And he signed it nice, right? He followed the angle of his leg. So he signed it real nicely there. So did you ever do that? I know you're a card guy and you collect a little bit. Did you ever send cards actually to the stadium asking someone to sign it?
No, I always wanted to because you always heard those stories of people like you actually getting them back. That is super cool. Yeah, but I never. Ray, speaking of public service, I was always afraid to send something in the mail because I was like, I don't know if this is coming back.
Yeah. True.
Or I was always worried that something I'd put the address, the send address in the wrong thing.
Right.
I was like, I put it in but anyway. So no, I never did. I never got cards graded either, but I always wanted to, Ray.
One time, I forget who it was offhand, but you would put the card in the little sleeve.
Yeah.
And then you put it in the top loader or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
One of the guys, I have to find it, signed it, must have immediately slid it in, like pulled it halfway out, signed it, stuck it in. So the name was all smeared because it was smeared onto the thin sheet inside. So you could, reconstruct what happened. It's like he must have signed it and then just slid it down and so I had that. I had one time where I sent Jason Kendall a card. I got back an autographed Jason Kendall card, not the one I sent him, but I got. I don't know if he just had one that he signed to everyone, or if he just was grabbing out of the pile and they got confused. But he got me back an autographed card.
Wow!
So it was always like you said, it was tough. Like this Topps Finest card was probably 30 cents. It wasn't 50 cents, whatever. You want to get a nice card signed, but you didn't want to send something that could get lost. So it was fun. But yeah, you never did it, huh?
The coolest thing I ever had was my grandpa met Carl Yastrzemski and got an autograph on like just a little a white piece of paper, but it wasn't a card. But that was I had I didn't really understand the gravity of that when I was 8 years old, but now I do as a 35-year-old person.
When I was 8 to 10, and I still have it. We were at a place that just shut down within the last year. It's called the Fish Market. It was a seafood restaurant that was right on the lagoon and everything like that. And I noticed Joe Montana eating dinner with his wife. And I, to this day, feel really bad about this because, I was an 8, 10-year-old kid. I'm like, it's Joe Montana. My dad's like, go get an autograph. So I have a Fish Market paper placemat. He took time out of his dinner and actually signed it for me. Cool, like super cool, right? But I've always felt bad. I'm like, the poor dude's eating dinner with his wife, and I'm like harassing him. I'm like, look, how's he not gonna sign an autograph for a 10-year-old kid, right? Luckily, I didn't start like a stampede of like 100 people going over to him because that, thinking back too, it's like I could have ruined the whole guy's night. But I have it, a paper Fish Market, the little fish guy in the corner, and then here's this, placemat with Joe Montana's autograph on it.
Much like on the field, Joe Montana coming in clutch for Ray at dinner as well.
There you go. Russell Clay joining us here as he does every Friday. I don't know. People will probably enjoy that, I hope. Hope that doesn't bore people to death. Not talking football here. Here's Angelo. Angelo says the following. I sold most of my autographs on eBay. Wow, there's Carl Yastrzemski. Robinson, Tom Seaver. Wow, Angelo. Those are some Hall of Fame level performers there. Yeah. Actually, all of them are Hall of Famers. Wow. You ever sell stuff on eBay?
Yeah. I've sold cards and nothing crazy, but yeah. It's a process.
Talk some football. Let's talk this weekend with you here, Russell. Russell Clay, fantasyguru.com. O being of. AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith. If we had to choose one of those guys this weekend from the Eagles, who are we going with? DeVonta Smith has missed time with injury. Brown, was kind of on a heater scoring touchdowns every week heading into the playoffs. That last week, he barely catches a pass. He's reading the book on the sidelines. Like, where are we at with A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith if you had to choose one this weekend, Russell?
So with the context that Saquon had almost I think a little over 300 total yards in the last game these guys played. My theory going into this, and we saw this quite a bit last week, are they just going to run the ball and run the clock out and do those 12, 15 play drives and try to get out of this game? Certainly feels that way. Certainly felt that way last week. They had no interest in passing the ball. They had no interest in testing Jalen Hurts in the clutch. And I don't blame them. You got Saquon. So this could be a 30, 40, 50 rush attempt game for this team. With that said, it's always going to be A.J. Brown for me as the answer. That's the answer always. But yeah, it could be a questionable one.
What about the backfield of the Chiefs? Isiah Pacheco came back from his knee injury. Everyone got excited. Kareem Hunt started to see his workload decrease. Then all of a sudden it went back up. Pacheco got beat up. Now it's like, is Kareem Hunt the lead back again? Like, where are we at with the backfield of the Chiefs? Is this like just a stay away scenario for playing any kind of fantasy this week and with these backfield guys?
Yeah, I don't think Andy Reid and the Chiefs value Isiah Pacheco's foot stomping as much as we do. We all love it. It's very entertaining. He's an awesome player to watch, but that's going to be a committee. Hunt's shown enough upside, and he knows the playbook, and he knows the offense well enough that they're going to use him, especially in the red zone and at the goal line. So that's the most frustrating part. But ultimately, I do think Pacheco's still the lead back.
Chris D, by the way, says, as a kid, he used to try to get autographs waiting at the stadium. Did you ever pull that move off, Russell, where you kind of waited after the game and kind of stood around hoping to catch a guy walking to his car?
The first memory I have of that is I saw in like 2013 or 14, I saw Adam Carolla do a live podcast, and my buddy wanted to wait to have him sign a Mangria. And I just was like, I can't do this, man. So no, I never did.
So did your buddy do it? Did he wait?
No, he waited a few minutes. The line was so long. We were just like, yeah, I'm not.
Right. Yeah. Good one, Chris. You update. You're the Dynasty guy over at fantasyguru.com. And remember, folks, you can go to the Fantasy Guru, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can always sign up for any of the sports and any of the products. And it's not like in the case of football in particular, it ever stops. Like there's a slower time. Once the Super Bowl happens, it slows down a little bit, but then we're right into draft season. And Russell and the crew are writing articles and breaking things down and prepping for the next season. So you can still sign up for the football product right now. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com as well. Support@fantasyguru.com. You mentioned last week that you recently updated the Dynasty rankings. And you're starting to include these college kids, and it's difficult at this time, but you're starting to do that. I want to ask about a couple of players in particular at a couple of spots. Everyone that watches this show or follows you knows you're a Trevor Lawrence guy. You've been very open about that, and your lack of being impressed. Okay, it's fair to say. Trevor Lawrence, Bo Nix, they're pretty close in the Dynasty rankings over at fantasyguru.com. Who do you favor? Bo Nix, did he show you enough, even though he's an old rookie? Did he show you enough that he's moved past Trevor Lawrence at this point or not?
So we have the situation I want Trevor Lawrence to be in, and then we have Trevor Lawrence. So I need to see who this coach hire is before I make a decision for Trevor. But I mean, with this Jags organization, can we really trust anything right now? So that's where we're at with that. Bo Nix has a huge leg up infrastructure-wise. I know a lot of folks are critical of Sean Payton and the play calling, especially in the playoffs this year. Right. Totally understand that, and that could be an issue going forward. But he's got a really high floor. So that's the difference. It's a high floor guy versus Trevor, who, if he stays in this dysfunctional situation and there isn't a head coach that comes in and makes it better, he could just be, bad O-line, no weapons, and injured again halfway through next year. So this is a fluid situation. I'm still probably taking Trevor on my personal dynasty teams right now, but it's rough.
Speaking of the products over at fantasyguru.com, John G just said he just re-upped on baseball and football. So John, thank you. You're wall-to-wall Ray and Russell for the rest of your life. We appreciate that. Looking forward to another great year of baseball info. So are we. We've got all that stuff over there at FG. The baseball draft guide that covers the entire season is available. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can also sign up for the DFS baseball, the wagering baseball, on and on and on. But yeah, Russell, since we're talking about it, what's kind of your schedule off season once the Super Bowl ends? What's your football schedule like? Do you just start diving into player profiles of these youngsters and such?
Diving into player profiles, getting everything set for the off season. I mean, there's some stuff non-work wise that I get into, like MMA, and casually watch baseball. But yeah, it's mostly the draft from here on out. And you're starting to see the tweets. People are coming up with their rookie rankings. People are doing their draft stuff. We're going to have the Senior Bowl in a few weeks after the Super Bowl, or I think they changed it to between the Pro Bowl that week before the Super Bowl. So that's going to be happening. All the NFL draft stuff's going to be coming soon. So that is the goal right now.
Speaking of rookies, these guys were both rookies in 2024. These wideouts were wildly successful. Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas. The answer is yes, right? They're both it, right? If you had to choose one, which direction are you going? Thomas performed a little bit. He was a little bit more sexy, right? Nabers was the huge catch guy. In theory, Thomas has a better quarterback, at least now, than Nabers. Like, how do you decide which one of these guys, Thomas or Nabers, you'd want in a dynasty or keeper setup?
I love Brian Thomas, and I love his quarterback. What Malik Nabers did in a lot of these games this year was heroic for our redraft fantasy football purposes, and just overall a heroic adventure for him this year with Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, and whoever else was stepping up at quarterback every week. So I'm super impressed with what Malik Nabers did, and I would still go with him, especially if you drafted Malik Nabers It's one of those where if you drafted Malik Nabers or you had him heading into the year, I don't think you can move off that conviction.
Where are we at with Tank Dell? An undersized guy that kind of floats in and out of the offense, and there's always the moments. And to date, we've talked about him previously. To date, he's been pretty good, right? If you look at the totality of his career, but his knee apparently was destroyed. Every ligament was gone. They're talking yesterday, the first of many surgeries. If you're in a dynasty league, do you just hold and pray? Is he somebody that if someone else had, you would make a move on and say, here's a 7th round pick? Like, is he like, how do you view a guy that's, his knee got shredded and he's, 5'9" and 165 pounds?
We've shifted away from him being a dynasty player and more just kind of rooting for him to play again. Okay. That's a wrap. As far as I'm concerned, I no offense to Tank Dell, but I might as well take him out of the rankings. Remember when Alex Smith came back with the shredded leg, and it was like, I don't know if he should still be playing. Yeah. It's like he's doing it. All right. So that's where we're at with Tank Dell at this point. I am rooting for him. I would love to see him get back. I do think he gets back, but as far as featured weapon in an NFL offense, I'm pretty much out here.
It's not that often that an NFL player catches 88 passes, 107 passes, and 86 passes, which is averaging more than 90 a year, at the age of 24, 25, 26. To then 2 years later be released. I may have only added one. Like, what the hell is going on with Diontae Johnson? Like, is this just dude's personality? Do you think it's the skills have declined? Is it just bad fits? Like, again, it was only a couple years ago. This guy was a banger in PPR setups. Now he can't even stand a freaking team.
Well, I was joking maybe a month ago about T. Higgins going to sign his long-term contract, and then we're just never going to hear from him again. This is actually what happened to Diontae Johnson. The talent was never in question, and really the off-field stuff was never in question. But once that rookie deal was gone, it's a wrap. So I don't know what's going on. It's going to be hard for a team to really trust him going into next year. Now, could he shift into a role and just fire off from there? Absolutely. So not really sure.
If you're in a 12-team league and you had 25 roster spots, is he your 25th guy? Are you holding on to him?
Sure. Yeah. If someone drops him, I'm in. Because the upside's, we know the upside's still there. The talent's still there. It wasn't an injury. Mm-hmm. But I mean, would it be surprised if he puts, an Instagram post up 2 months from now? It's like, I'm done with football. Right. I'm traveling the world. It's right. Like, okay. Yeah. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Well, I think officially he's on the Rams now, right? I mean, on the Ravens, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, he could get a Super Bowl ring if they win. I don't know. It's a wild scenario there. I guess the Ravens were hoping to get the compensatory pick or something. That's my guess, because I don't think he's going to be active. Anyway, I don't know. Wild situation with Diontae Johnson. That's how quick it can go, folks. It can go very quickly in dynasty scenarios, especially in football. So I got to ask you about George Pickens. We've talked about him. What? We don't know who the quarterback is of the Steelers. We don't know who's going to be running the offense. As we discussed here on this show, a lot of people don't like Mike Tomlin anyway. George Pickens, he can be active and fully healthy, and he may play 50% of the snaps at full speed. He may play 20% of the snaps at full speed. He may play 100% of it. We have no clue. What do we do with a guy like this in Dynasty? Because you're gonna tell me, well, Ray, and I'm gonna say, well, yeah, Russell. But then I'm gonna say, but Russell, and you're gonna say, well, yeah, Ray. Like, what do we do with George Pickens?
So I moved him down this week in the rankings, despite him moving up in my fan rankings, non-fantasy football. I love George Pickens. He, if anything, he's had games this year where he maybe had one catch, but he gave me a lot of laughs. And we're just the offensive pass interferences, the defensive. Half the hilarity of George Pickens is almost all of his yards, half of them this year, he just got defensive pass interferences, or he had 40, 50-yard catches, wiped off the board with offensive pass interference. So he had to have led the league in penalty yards, both ways.
Right.
So he's absolute chaos. He's probably my favorite receiver right now, just from an entertainment standpoint.
Okay.
But I had to move him down because this is too volatile even for me. The talent is there. He's right there with Brian Thomas talent-wise, but it's just pure chaos.
With again, the situation with new OC with the Steelers, new quarterback with the Steelers, maybe a new focus offensively, like the temptation in a dynasty or keeper league with George Pickens is to add him and hope that he A, gets traded, or B, they bring in some offensive whiz, and here we go, and they sign a quarter. Maybe they sign Sam Darnold, right? Now that we got 35 touchdowns with the Steelers last year. Would you take that chance? I mean, again, I don't think the cost is going to be very high. You said you're in on him as a fan. You're not really in on him as a dynasty guy. What level of payment would you lay out for George Pickens with the possibility that, yeah, man, if this guy's happy, to the moon?
So, I mean, I'll pay a lot. He's still a top 10 dynasty wide receiver for me. I just moved him out of those top tiers because the other players don't have a Drake London. We're not worried about Drake London,
right,
being a goofball. Right.
So you've got him as a wide receiver 1, basically.
I've got him as, I think I have him at 87 overall, which is wide receiver 12-ish.
Okay.
So still very high on him. So that's really high praise, but that is the ceiling that you should value him at, right? Because, I laugh because why didn't he produce at Georgia? It's like, we know now, like, why did he drop to the second round? It's like, oh, he's absolutely wild. Yeah.
Yes. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Kimani Vidal. Like, what happened there? Like, do you have a sense? I mean, Gus Edwards is a year older. He's not a threat. I believe Dobbins is a free agent. Now, they could bring him back, but he was injured yet again this season. And here's Kimani Vidal, who, according to a lot of people, including myself, like at some point in 2024 was going to become the lead back for the Chargers and be successful. Freaking Hassan Haskins was active on game days, and Kimani Vidal wasn't even late in the year. I don't know if that was just merely because of special teams player or what have you, but yeah, the total redshirt season for Kimani Vidal, or did we all have it wrong?
There's no clear answer, and here's the thing with 5th+ round picks in the NFL draft. Now, this is a little more fluid than years ago because there aren't as many highly drafted running backs. So, my theory, 4th round is the new 3rd round is fair. So some of these later round guys are going to get more opportunity, but some of these could say, okay, this was a later round pick. Maybe he didn't spark in the locker room like we thought he was going to. So, wouldn't be surprising if the Chargers draft a running back this year. Actually, I would expect that to happen. So that's the risk we take. Sometimes they're Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy. Sometimes they're not. So a lot of that has to do with who's on the depth chart and, the coaching and all that stuff behind the scenes. All we can do is draft them and take our shots, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. I drafted Vidal, so don't sit out there and say, well, Ray, you told everyone to draft him. I drafted him in Dynasty League. I took him over Isaac Guerrero. So that's going well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Roman Wilson wasn't my finest day either,
Who?
Roman Wilson.
Oh, yeah. That's
Pittsburgh guy.
No worse than Kimani Vidal, so don't feel bad.
They're all zeros at the end of the day.
Yeah, right? Right? You weren't using either one. Is it Sinnott? I always get it. I always forget with Ben. Which is the proper way to say it as you finish your coffee there, Russell? Which is it? Ben?
I don't know.
Ben S.
He doesn't matter enough yet for us to know.
Oh,
right?
That's what I was going to ask you. Is he going to matter though? Because Zach Ertz is not. He's not young, and though he's had moments. Clearly, he's toward the end of his career, and they've got their quarterback there and Jay Daniels, and they've got McLaurin. Like, they've got these weapons here. And, the tight end obviously is part of the offense. So future-wise, is he, a stash in the dynasty?
Absolutely. And we just saw Zach Ertz in Arizona lead Trey McBride along for a few years and guide him into that role. And this is going to sound woo-woo-y, but players make imprints in NFL offenses, and what Zach Ertz is doing this year is making an imprint of what Jaden Daniels is going to use for tight ends. We saw this with Dalton Schultz, and actually, we initially saw it with Jason Witten for Dak Prescott, and we've seen this role continue for a decade now with Dalton Schultz and Jake Ferguson and, even Luke Schoonmaker for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. So what Zach Ertz has done this year has been fantasy relevant enough for me to say, okay, they drafted Ben Sano 3rd round. We have this imprint of a fantasy relevant role. If they let go of Ertz next year, you got Sano starting with Jaden Daniels, who's one of the bright young pieces. I mean, I think I could not be more impressed with Jaden Daniels. This guy is so special. I don't know if he's Mahomes Allen tier yet, but very few players have ever done what he's doing right now. And, Stroud won games last year, but it never quite looked like this. So I'm all in. Any piece. We're at any piece connected to Daniels at this point. I'm going to buy.
Are we past the concern? Was it a legitimate concern with the size of Daniels? Because he is small.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 6'3", 190, and I'm not going to look small standing next to him. Like, he's thin. I'm not an NFL player. Are we past that? Is that still there? What do you think?
Oh, still very concerned, but we saw Lamar has figured out a whole career, and he's year 8. He's totally shifted thin running quarterbacks for me. He's proven to me that guys can get down. I look at Jalen Hurts now. Mm-hmm. I've been rooting for this for years. Jalen Hurts never gets hit. He dives even in open field. He's just down. And that's what these guys have to do. So now that they've actually figured that out, these guys can have really long careers. Now, Josh Allen, I'm still like, dude, please stop.
Fly.
But he's also 6'5", 240 or whatever. Right. So that's a little different. But yeah, I mean, even in the playoff game, Jaden Daniels in that first half got absolutely flung out like Carlton in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? He got thrown out of there. But, that is what it is. I guess I'm going to hope he gets down and survives. But as far as future upside, he's going to be one of the guys.
Is that part of the problem with Anthony Richardson, who, for better or worse, has been compared to Cam Newton? There's size similarities stylistically. And it seems to me that, the most excited I've seen Anthony Richardson is when he has like a 2-yard run where he runs over a defensive back. It's like, bro, you're 250 pounds. That guy's 202. You should run him over. Like, that to me, it seems the most exciting he ever is on a football field. Does that concern you? Because it doesn't seem like he's getting the memo, despite all the injuries, that, you can run a guy over, but it's not always wise to do it.
We all loved Cam in his prime, fantasy-wise and not. It was amazing to watch, but that's the type of stuff we were talking about with injuries. It's like, that's got, that can't last. So, I think Richardson's best bet is to play like that, get 3 to 5 years as a bruising running back quarterback and get out of there. But yeah, that's my thoughts on him.
Yeah, you can't watch him and Jane Daniels and really, other than to say they both run, there's no comparison. It's just night and day. It's such a difference. You're totally right about that. Russell Clay of FantasyGuru.com. So this is about the end of the show today, but don't worry. It's not the end of the day for Russell and Ray, because I do in the 1 hour here in the morning. Then I got the next 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm hosting that show. And then right after that show, Russell, tell the folks what we got coming down.
We got a Clay's Corner episode, And this is the first one of the off season for food purposes. Ray, I don't know if you have a snack yet or you have anything prepared. Okay, we got
that's it right there. Yeah.
So something I like doing last off season to get to know people better and just kind of mess around. I obviously do pretzel reviews as kind of my goofy gag of the off season. Love having people on, displaying their snack and going from there. They give it a rating. So if you guys are into snack reviews and getting new ideas for food, that is the plan.
And where will folks be able to see that? Where are they going to follow the live action or after the fact?
You can find that live on Twitter, but I will be posting it in article form on the site later today. So check that out. We'll see what Ray's got cooking up here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to show it, but you can hear it there.
I hear rummaging.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see because I realized I had this and I hadn't eaten it. We got it a couple months ago. I was like, oh, perfect for the show. I think I'm gonna say this is the first time this will be shared on Clay's Corner. I feel very confident about that. So hopefully the folks will be able to see that and enjoy it on your Twitter's Russell J. Clay.
Yes, Russell J. Clay.
And then an article over at the site. So we'll be doing that. Yeah, we're going to start about 6:15 Eastern time, something like that, right after the show on SiriusXM. Because I can't apparently talk enough this week. I'm just going to keep talking, Russell, until my voice disappears.
Ray, what's funny is before you did that teaser, I was like, I was going to offer a rain check to another week where you're not doing like 7 shows a day, but here we are.
I'm proud of this, I guess, and I've said it before, but I still hold the record for SiriusXM. For the channel, for the Fantasy Sports Channel, for hours in a day. This was 10 years ago now, but I did 11 hours one day. I did a 4-hour show, a 4-hour show, and a 3-hour show. So I did 11 hours one day. This is back when we were ham and egging it and putting it together and kind of a little bit of a smaller entity than the corporate thing it is now. But yeah, I did 11 hours of talking one day, and program director kept coming in after every show. You okay, Ray? I'm like, I'm just talking. It's okay. I'm not building a house. I'm fine. So 4 hours is 5 hours a lot, but if I do 5 hours, I'm not even halfway to my record, Russell. So I'll be good to go for your show.
Oh my God! All right, well,
the hope
Lance Armstrong over here.
the hope is probably from my lady. We have a pottery tonight. The hope is probably from her that I'll lose my voice today, so she won't have to listen to me. But I don't know. I think it's going to hold on. So sorry, sweetie.
Yeah, all you have to do is craft, Ray. You just craft.
Hey, shut up. You wanted to see one of those. Maybe next week I'll bring one of those pieces on, right? You were the one that said you wanted to see something. Yeah. Today it was Shane Reynolds. Maybe next week it'll be a piece of pottery. We always have fun here on Fridays with Russell. He usually joins us about 9:30 West Coast time, about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on Fridays here on Fantasy Sports Daily. We'll have him back next week. And as I've said, catch us later tonight, 6:15-ish Eastern Standard Time for an edition of Clay's Corner. Thanks for the fun today, Russell. As always, it was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later today and then on this show next week.
Thanks, Ray.
You got it. He's Russell Clay. I'm Ray Flowers. Have a good weekend, folks. Good luck with the 4 games. In football, don't forget to go to fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Send the email to support@fantasyguru.com. Get signed up for us at fantasyguru.com, where winners win. For Russell, I'm Ray. Thanks for watching Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.